Shabbat Shalom. We need a little shalom after those curses, right? I don't know how many of you were reading along in the Hebrew and just focusing on the sounds, or how many of you are able to comprehend all of the text, or how many of you were dipping into the English. But it's pretty brutal in there. It is really a very difficult testimony to be reading through. Of course, anybody here that is a student of history will know that the description of those curses are exactly what happens historically, time and time again in different parts of the world. However, you may also have been shocked as soon as we finished the Torah reading and moved on into the Haftarah, which Jaden and Sarah chanted, that the tone changed completely. That all of a sudden the Haftarah, we've got these words of light and joy and God carrying us, and we're back and it's wonderful. It seems a little bit as though the message is a bit crossed. As they might say in the political realm, someone forgot to stay on their talking points. Are we going to be in the horror show of the curses, or are we going to be in the happy upland valleys of the Haftarah? Are they contradictory or not? It is, of course, mandatory that we read these curses at this time of year. That is the cycle of the Torah. And it is equally mandated that we read this Haftarah as one of the 7 Haftarot of consolation that come between Tisha B'Av and Rosh Hashanah. So there's no avoiding it. Well, let's take a look at those curses a little bit. Now, as Jayden mentioned, when we hear the word curse in English, we usually think of Sleeping Beauty and some evil fairy or witch cackling and putting a spell over a baby or someone else. That is not, as Jayden explained, what's going on in the Torah. We are not talking about someone putting the evil eye on someone. This is not God casting a spell. When we look at the curses, they are very prosaic. They are very natural, dare I say. They are not curses that are, you will suddenly grow a third eye in the center of your forehead, or that you will suddenly grow a tail, but others will rise up over you, and they will be the head, and you will be the tail. There will be famine, there will be pestilence and disease, there will be sword, and there will be destruction, there will be sorrow. These are not the curses that we see that put people to sleep for 100 years. These are the result of a society that collapses upon itself. These are the consequences of what the society has done. These are not magic incantations that miraculously spring out as some supernatural punishment. This is a set of warnings. When you see on the side of an electric box a giant picture of a person being electrocuted, that's not telling you that there is a spell on the box, or that there is a curse over any who dare disturb the sacred slumber of the wires within. That is telling you that mess around with electricity and you're going to the ER. Mess around too much and you're going to the morgue. That is not a curse, that is an inevitable outcome. And indeed, we see throughout the prophetic tradition from the other writings of the prophets that are not quite as happy as the selections that we have for these 7 weeks, that indeed, time and time again, our people messed around with those wires. Time and time again, our people turned against each other. Yes, the imagery in the curses of people being reduced to eating their own children is absolutely abominable. But when we read the rest of the prophetic tradition and the history of our people leading up to the destruction of the first temple, we realize they were eating each other metaphorically day in, day out. By robbing from each other, by starving each other, by exploiting each other, whether it be their workers, their hired hands, or strangers among them, there was already this level of self-consumption, of cannibalism within the society before we were reduced to the literal cannibalism described in these curses and found in our history. And thus it is not surprising that we end up at the end where we are. Because when you have a society that doesn't look upon each other with the same love and respect that God demands of us to look upon each other, then that is a society where people will be callous and insensitive to the problems of someone else. That is the place where someone will be so callous and insensitive to not only the existing problems of someone else, but they will be so callous and insensitive that they will create new problems for someone else. Because why shouldn't I? Why shouldn't I? If I can take something from them because I am in a position to do so, and they are in a weak position and can do nothing to stop me, well, that's the way the world is, isn't it? Dog eat dog. We are here for the survival of the fittest, and any other social Darwin, eugenics, or fascist theology that you may wish to follow will tell you, take what you can, everyone else is doing it, and you're a sucker if you don't. And that was the society of the Temple period, near the end of 586, when the Babylonians wiped us out. Is it any wonder we could not stand against them? Is it any wonder that we were unable to see a path forward that didn't end in our destruction? We had already had a steady diet of eating each other for lunch. How could we stand together, shoulder to shoulder, on the walls of Jerusalem and repel the assault? The Haftarah came for those generations in exile. The Haftarah came, as Sarah explained, to give light, to give joy to those who had been carried off by the Babylonians, and to tell them there is a different way to live. The Torah is not demanding that you follow God's rules because it is persnickety, but because it is a blessing. And that blessing begins by recognizing that God is with us. And with God being with us, not just me, it means when I look at that other human being, I recognize within them the image of Adonai, the image of God. I recognize within them the sanctity of God, and I recognize that there is a wall between what I might want to do to help myself and what I ought to be doing to help myself and to help them. That there is a barrier to my behavior, that even if I am not yet as enlightened a person to be able to respect them on their own, I can respect them as a reflection of God. And by recognizing that God is with them as well as God is with me, then my hands are tied. I cannot eat them for lunch. I cannot exploit them. I cannot allow our society to crumble and allow others to suffer or contribute to their suffering, because they are as godly as me. And Isaiah is telling us here, as well as in many other passages, this is the way back. God did not say, sorry, you blew it, you're done, you guys are all terrible people, next. God said, you blew it, you were terrible people, try again. You can do better than this. See the godliness in you, see the godliness in your neighbor, and build the society as it should be. Build yourself up and build up the person next to you at the same time. Do not see them as being your opponent. See them as being your brothers and sisters. With that, we have light. With that, we have joy. With that, we have the brachot, the blessings that we saw in the Torah reading as well. And those don't need as much description, because we know the good is limitless. We know the blessing that God has offered is infinite, if we would but treat each other the way God sees each of us. Shabbat Shalom.